Hi everyone, today I'm interviewing Adam. He is the co-founder of Urban Spoon, which got acquired by CitySearch, which is also known as an IAC company. And he was the co-founder of Strangeberry, which got acquired by TiVo, correct? That was in 2004?
That's right. I've had a number of exits, of which Urban Spoon is the most successful. Strangeberry before that, and some other ones too.
Cool, awesome. So the thing I actually wanted to interview you today on, Adam, is how you drive traffic. Now, with Urban Spoon, you actually drove a ton of your traffic through SEO. And what I wanted to get into was um, how'd you grow Urban Spoon's traffic from nothing to millions of views or what it is today? And the reason I ask that is you hear a lot of these co-founders out there who are building up companies and spending a ton of money on marketing, but yours wasn't a venture-backed business. You bootstrapped the whole thing without any cash, and you got it from nothing to an exit.
Yeah, that's a good question. When we started Urban Spoon, it was just me and my co-founder Ethan Lowry. We had a few goals in the beginning. We wanted to teach ourselves Ruby on Rails. We wanted to learn a little bit about SEO, and we didn't want to take financing. Was an explicit goal of ours. And I think if you look at what we did with Urban Spoon, you can see that we achieved all three goals pretty well. I think having that plan in the beginning really helped us. We were heavily inspired by, I don't know how to pronounce his name, but Marcus Friend from Plenty of Fish. We looked at what he was doing and we said to ourselves, hey, if he can do it, we can do it. We're smart guys. We ought to be able to figure it out. If somebody had told me back when we were starting, if I had been informed that I would have to get millions of unique visitors every month in order to even pay myself a minor salary, I probably would have been very discouraged. But luckily we were totally ignorant. We didn't know anything about advertising or SEO. We were so ignorant that we just plunged right in and we were able to make it a success.
So with Urban Spoon, with your SEO strategy, what did you do specifically to get traffic from search engines?
So the first thing that we did is, once we started to get an understanding of what SEO was, we pretty quickly realized that we couldn't attack any of our competitors head on. Our competitors at that point were folks like CitySearch and Yelp and a few others who have disappeared. And at first we said to ourselves, well, we want to start competing for terms like Seattle restaurants. And we very quickly figured out that we were smoking crack. There was no way we could compete for those terms. A tiny startup, it just wasn't going to happen. So we tried to find ways where we could leverage our technical strengths and use our product prowess to turn SEO to our advantage. So I think the first thing that we did right off the bat was we decided that instead of trying to compete for terms like Seattle restaurants, we would compete for terms like neighborhood name restaurants. So the example in Seattle would be Capitol Hill restaurants or downtown restaurants. So we pretty explicitly targeted that as an area that we wanted to attack. And again, we were still learning. So we built neighborhood pages. We put content on them. We put all kinds of fun little reports like which restaurants were rising and falling in the rankings and what were the hot restaurants. We put that all on this great page. And of course, we did the basics like meta tags and header tags and title tags. And then, just kind of waited to see what happened. And the funny thing is that if you target these terms that nobody else is going after, it's pretty easy to dominate them. And even a term like neighborhood name restaurants, which has some competition around it, if you can do a better job of it, you'll probably find a way to succeed there. Like I said, pretty much the only thing we had going was that we were willing to put in a lot of time and effort to make our data really, really, really good. So when we built our list of downtown Seattle restaurants, we had these amazing tools for showing all the restaurants on the map and painting the neighborhoods on top of the map. What we discovered is that other people who were trying to attack those terms, just like we were, they were licensing their data from third parties, like neighborhood boundaries, the polygons. They were licensing that stuff, and the data was terrible. So not only did we find this ripe area for us to innovate in, but we actually had a number of advantages just in the quality of our data. If we were willing to invest heavily in our data, that led directly to producing better pages, which had tremendous benefits in terms of driving traffic because people recognized that that stuff was better, and they started to see Urban Spoon as a destination. So it had a snowball effect. So that was one of the first things we did, but there were many, many, many others. I know we had a lot to talk about, but we did a lot of other things like, for example, I think something that a lot of people don't do is really watch their log files, especially when you're building one of these sites that's long tail. Analytics isn't really helpful for telling you how people are getting to your site unless you're targeting the fat head. For a long tail site, it's helpful to build your own tools. So for example, I built a tool that would parse our log files, look at all the Google refers, and divide them up into categories. And I built this nice report that would say things like, well, 5% of our traffic was searching for a restaurant name. 8% of our traffic was searching for neighborhood namespace restaurants. 10% was searching for neighborhood name, restaurant name, etc. So I had this nice report, and it took a while to run. It was kind of slow. It was churning through a bunch of data. But then we started to notice these really interesting things that were popping up. Like I was categorizing all the terms, which there's no way to do that in analytics. I was categorizing all these terms, and I found that some of the incoming searches, I didn't really understand them. Like I couldn't figure out what were people typing in. At first it looked like nonsense. And eventually we were able to tease out of this data some interesting stuff. Like, for example, people search for restaurants near the name of a movie theater. So like we never knew that, and it was news to us, and they were ending up on Urban Spoon just by serendipity. So again, as part of our as part of our desire to out-innovate, we went and built a bunch of movie theater pages. And then we had nice landing pages for restaurants near movie theater, and again, it has a snowball effect.
So the first thing I ended up getting was, one, you didn't target the head terms, right? And you didn't even target the somewhat mid-tail terms, which would be like Seattle restaurants. You went for specific geographic regions within the cities that weren't as competitive.
That's right. We attacked on the flanks.
There you go. And then the second thing that I really got was you mentioned something about creating a table, a competition. And let's dig a bit deeper into that competition table. So it'd be the top 10 or most popular restaurants in this specific region, like Capitol Hill?
Well, that was slightly different. But yeah, we, there's so much that we did. It's kind of hard to summarize because I think we spent 40% of our engineering effort on SEO. But yeah, we built this great neighborhood landing page, and we populated it with all this fascinating data about what was happening in your neighborhood. So if you were a foodie and you were looking at Urban Spoon's downtown restaurants page, there was all kinds of fascinating stuff. There were graphs and charts and which restaurants were hot and which were not, and people were really interested in that. The nice thing about having that dynamic data is that there was always movement on the page. So we got a constant, Google always thought we had fresh content, and we did have fresh content. It was always changing.
Got it. So the whole purpose of that was to create fresh content, and by having unique information on the page that was interesting people, it would create more links, right? Where
That's
people
right.
Come back and keep on linking, which would help you rank higher for more and more long tail terms. And then the third thing I got was you actually build your own log parser, which would end up breaking down, because when you're going after long tail, it's too hard to get data from analytics on all those small terms. But it helped you figure out what people were searching for that was small, because in analytics it's going to only show 1 or 2 visitors, but you combine them into buckets, and the combinations would actually show you which groups were really popular, and you started focusing on really popular areas. So an example would be, food places by specific movie theaters, so that when people go watch a movie, they could grab a meal.
That's right. We built this report that was essentially a taxonomy of searches. And anytime we saw lots of terms that didn't fit into the taxonomy, we would try to figure out, well, why doesn't that fit? And how are those people getting to Urban Spoon? And could we be better serving them? The other thing we found out, this seems so obvious in retrospect, was that a lot of people were searching for, restaurants in zip code. And because we had addresses in Urban Spoon, they would type this stuff into Google, and they would end up at one of our restaurant pages that happened to have that zip code on it. So it was like, again, we weren't serving the needs of that search very well, but it was 3% of our traffic. So we built zip code landing pages, and we linked them everywhere, and suddenly, People found that Urban Spoon is a great place to go to find.
My bad. I'm at my sister's house and I can't figure out how to turn off this stupid phone.
Just pretend it's me.
There you go. So when you're actually talking about the zip codes went from being 3% of your traffic. Do you know how much they went to be after you created those landing pages?
Oh, I'm trying to remember. I don't think we tracked it after the fact, but I think we doubled it.
Well, which is quite a bit when you're getting, hundreds and thousands, if not millions of visitors a month.
Yeah, I mean, this is in the beginning when things were smaller, but these were the tactics that enabled us to get a lot bigger. Um, yeah, there was a lot of we didn't have money, we didn't have any SEO consultants, we didn't really have at that point much of an ability or an understanding of how to do link building. So we spent a lot of time focused on how can we build better content, how can we keep it fresh, and how can we build better landing pages for people that are ending up at the site accidentally.
Another strategy I noticed with you guys is badges. The more badges people place on their website linking back to Urban Spoon, the more links you have, and the more links you have, the higher you're going to rank on search engines. How did you guys get your badges out there, and what was the strategy behind it?
Yeah, it's interesting. It's kind of like the I think this is the big secret of Urban Spoon. I guess everybody knows now, but I think that those badges were responsible for a large portion of our success. I mean, you can point at the iPhone app, you can point at the great product that we built, but I think the badges and the inbound links that were created as a result of those badges really was like the bread and butter of our SEO strategy. It was a large factor in our success in every way. So what we did was we happened to be building a product in a space where a lot of bloggers were interested in publishing restaurant reviews. We just lucked out. There was a lot of bloggers publishing about stuff in our space. And we sat down and tried to figure out, well, how can we get those bloggers to engage with Urban Spoon more? How can we get them to come to the site? How can we get them to put content on the site? How can we get them to link to the site? And what we eventually came up with was something that we call the Spoonback program, where a foodie blogger who is writing a review of a restaurant, when they're finished with their review, they can put a special Urban Spoon badge on their review, on their blog. Urban Spoon will notice that they link to the site, will scan their blog, and will take a snippet of their post and put it on our restaurant page. So it's basically like an automated cross, to put it in SEO terms, it's an automated cross-link. They put the badge on their post, and we pick it up, put in a snippet, and link back to them. So the links are going in both directions. It's very simple. There was some technical stuff involved, but on the surface of it, it's very simple. But what it does is if you're a food blogger who's got like a PR3 or a PR4, you're just getting started, you're posting reviews, suddenly you get an email from Urban Spoon and they say, hey, we love your blog. I love this picture that you took. I really want to check out that restaurant. It sounds amazing. That steak sounds so delicious. You should really check out our Spoonback program. We want to put your post on our restaurant page. And these bloggers were very excited to get their content onto Urban Spoon. Appropriately so, because it was a nice venue for them, distribution, and really playing to ego, getting people excited about being recognized. And what it did is, we just started emailing people, and it started creating some interest. And we realized, hey, I think we're onto something good here. The follow-up was, once we started collecting some of these inbound links and these badges, we decided to create a leaderboard. And the leaderboard tracks which blogs have the most posts on Urban Spoon. That's not precisely what it tracks, but that's sort of what it's correlated with. Who's posting the most on Urban Spoon? And I mean, I'd heard about gamification. I'd read about it. It was becoming a hot topic. I think this was a little bit before gamification became such a thing, but it was right at the start of that. And I couldn't believe how people started posting their blogs on Urban Spoon. In various small cities around the US and the English-speaking world, how bloggers were vying to be number one on Urban Spoon. There was cachet associated with that. I am the number one blogger of Urban Spoon Vancouver. There were fights about it. There were forum posts about it. There was tactics discussed. There was accusations flying back and forth. Oh, you didn't really eat there. You just wrote up a fake review. I mean, I couldn't believe it. And meanwhile, so this is great for Urban Spoon because it creates content. It's great for the bloggers because they're getting recognition. And it's amazing for SEO because what we created almost not entirely on purpose, but yeah, there was a lot of intent to it, but some of it was accidental. We created a link building engine, a phenomenal link building engine, and at this point, I think Urban Spoon has over 100,000 of those badges out there. So just imagine, what would you pay to get 100,000 links to your site? Good links, not fake links. These are all white hat. Good links.
That's a lot of badges.
Yeah, that's a lot of badges. So, once we started driving, in the beginning, for the first maybe 3 to 6 months, all of the three of us who were there at that point, and even contractors we very explicitly tried to send out 10 emails a day inviting bloggers to participate. Hey, you should really check this out. And then after a while, it's just started driving itself. We built a juggernaut. It's impossible to stop at this point.
Cool. So if you're looking to do badges and you're trying to get it out there, the thing I got from that is you don't have to wait for users to come to you to sign up and get the badge and put it on the site. You guys actually proactively went out there and you reach out to bloggers yourselves and convince them, hey, check this out, put it on, and it benefits both of us, and they're willing to do it, and you grew from there.
Yeah, yeah, and it's a funny dynamic because these bloggers really just want recognition. When they're just getting started, they want somebody to notice that they're producing something nice. And at Urban Spoon, we really appreciated all those folks who were doing that stuff. We made friends that way, we made contacts that way, and it was a big factor in our success.
So cool. Earlier you mentioned applications, like mobile applications. You guys had an iPhone app that was pretty popular. I wanted to actually get into how you made the iPhone app popular, and then how you use that iPhone app to drive traffic back to your site and to Urban Spoon.
Yeah, I mean that's an interview in and of itself. But the iPhone app, we basically felt like we missed the boat with Facebook. You got to put this in context. Remember, at that point, Facebook apps were all the rage, and we were like, "Oh shit, we're idiots. We should have built a Facebook app. I can't believe we didn't do that." We had friends at iLike and other places that were enjoying enormous success by being on Facebook, and we were bootstrapped. It was just two or three of us, and we didn't really feel that Facebook was a good place to invest our time, and we totally missed it, and we regretted it, from the day that it was launched. And we kind of had a sense that something might happen with the iPhone. We weren't really sure, but we felt like the iPhone could be a hit. We were uncertain about whether we should invest in it, because remember, nobody at that point, this is pre-iPhone launch, nobody knew if it was going to be a success or what it was going to look like. And eventually we were just like, you know what, we're going to fucking build an iPhone app. We're going to make it a big priority. We're going to, drop everything and spend a month on it, which when you're three guys and that's all you have, that's a major investment. At the time, it seemed like a crazy risk, but we decided to build this iPhone app, and we built it. At that point, Apple had their famous NDA, so you weren't allowed to talk about the app. But we managed to kind of quietly send it to a few folks. And I think really through serendipity, we were mentioned in a New York Times article. That article found its way over to Apple headquarters, and somehow, by some amazing miracle, Apple decided that they wanted to feature the Urban Spoon iPhone app in one of their first iPhone commercials. The first 4 iPhone commercials were 30 seconds long, and they each featured a single app. So suddenly, in the course of a few weeks, Urban Spoon was on national television. You would turn on like the Monday Night Football game, and there was an Urban Spoon ad, and you were like, "Oh my God, what is happening?" It was pretty amazing. And what's interesting is that, to get back to your original question, I think that Urban Spoon has become a national brand. And when a lot of people think about Urban Spoon, they think about that iPhone app and the shaking action. But really, and that is probably the part of Urban Spoon that monetizes the best, and the part that has the most cachet. But the vast majority of our traffic is still on web, mostly through SEO or repeat visitors, people who know the brand. I think that the mobile launch did a lot for us, and one of the things that it did is it got people to understand the Urban Spoon brand. It really built brand awareness, and you can't buy that kind of awareness. There's no way to get that. It's really hard to get that. There's a lot of luck involved in that. But once we had that brand awareness, when people start seeing Urban Spoon, in the top 5 of Google searches, they're like, oh, that rings a bell. Isn't that shaking thing, right? They kind of are putting it together in their head, even if they've never used the mobile app.
Yeah, I remember you shake it and it comes up with the restaurant.
That's right. So I think that in large part, in terms of driving traffic back to the site, brand awareness was the number one thing that was happening there. A lot of people used Urban Spoon and continue to use Urban Spoon on mobile. But those same people then go and they sit down at their machines and they recognize Urban Spoon. They see the logo, it looks kind of familiar. They see it in Google and they want to come back.
Beautiful. So it sounded like you use the iPhone app for more so of a branding player. That's how it ended up working out. But your main driver at the end of the day was SEO, and it was largely done through those badges. And to help get those badges out, you guys used things like leaderboards and made it competitive, like game mechanics. So then that way, more and more people want to put the badges on their site.
That's right. For a small company, I think that mobile can be a huge driver for a small company of brand awareness. It's probably not going to drive that much traffic. It's hard. It's hit based. It's competitive. There's serious investment required. But if you get a hit, then you will get brand awareness, which is very, very important.
Cool. Thank you for taking the time to do the interview. Really appreciate it, and best of luck with your current ventures.
Great. Thanks, Neil.